me in welcoming the most principled, conservative senator in Congress, and according to the Oklahoman, best friends with President Obama.
Well, I'll spend just a few minutes visiting with you, and then we'll just go back and forth in some questions. One of my favorite quotes by Ronald Reagan is this: "Freedom is a precious thing. It's not ours by inheritance alone. It is never guaranteed. It has to be fought for and defended by each succeeding generation." We see the truth of that statement today. You know, in 2002, in a little restaurant in Muskogee called Miss Addie's, American for Prosperity, the idea of it was born. And the fruition has come full circle now. And the reason AFP is growing is because people now really see our way of life threatened. And don't get it wrong, it is threatened. When I ran for the Senate, the first $1,000 check I got was from a guy from San Francisco by the name of Milton Friedman. He sent me a check and a little note. He says, "Don't forget what made this country great. Don't forget what made this country great." And a friend of mine just last week sent me a videotape between Milton Friedman and Phil Donahue. And I'm going to send it. I'll send it to some of the guys here, and hopefully they'll pass it around. It was the most succinct caricature of why what we do in this country in terms of capitalism and free enterprise is better than any system in the world. More people get benefited, more people rise, standard of living's improved, healthcare improves, every aspect of life improves better under a free enterprise capitalistic system than any other time. And what you see in Washington today is a move absolutely away from that. By design, by intention. And the heartbreaking aspect of it is we're now starting to get organized as the threat becomes very real of us losing our way of life. You know, I blocked for 2 years a lands package. The whole design behind that lands package was to gut the oil and gas and coal industry. Now, thankfully, we're working in the House to see that it doesn't come back. It may still come back. But we took 300 million barrels of proven oil reserves and said you can never touch them. We took 10 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, proven, said you can never touch it, and we added 6 million acres of land to heritage areas. That's important because we've now had a federal judge in Utah that said even if you're in proximity to a heritage area or a wilderness area, you can't drill. So what we're doing is we're totally handicapping ourselves against any carbon-based fuel, even if you 100% agree with global warming, or what they now refuse to call global warming, climate change. It changes all the time. But what has happened is an active decision to eliminate hydrocarbons in any form as a source of energy. So if you agree, the fastest we could do that is 20 years. If we had all the technology today that we need for us to convert to a non-carbon energy system, is at a minimum 20 years. Why should we keep sending $200 billion a year out of this country for carbon-based fuels when we've got them here? And yet, that's the battle that we're up against. I'm convinced that we can ultimately win, but it's going to be a lot harder now. It's going to be much more difficult. And what has to happen is the vigilance that's put forward by organizations like AFP to raise the level of debate, to educate and inform the American citizens. Most of you all are informed. The problem is the vast majority of other Americans aren't. And don't kid yourself, when President Obama says there's not going to be a tax increase on middle-income families, that's outright untrue. Because the cap-and-trade program that has been put forward will tax every family at least $600 a year. In terms of increased energy taxes that will never come back to their benefit. So the battle in Washington's real. It's difficult. We need Norm Coleman. In Minnesota, I'd say every day in the Senate without Al Franken is a great day. And it is. But hopefully we still have an opportunity there. And that puts us at 42. The House is important, but things die in the Senate. And I'm not Dr. Death. I hope to be not Dr. No. I hope to be Dr. Death on a lot of their programs that come through the Senate. Let me stop with that. I am not totally discouraged. I will tell you that. We've got great opportunity. When we see the bill that's on the floor right now, $410 billion, $8 billion worth of earmarks, 9,000 separate earmarks. And one example I'll leave with you before I answer questions. When we had the, quote, stimulus bill, I put an amendment on the Senate floor that passed 97 to nothing. Now, that's a record for a Coburn amendment. I want you to know that. But it said, we'll competitively bid all these things above $25,000. Everybody in the Senate voted for it. I put the same amendment on this omnibus bill and got 45 votes. Well, what's the difference? The difference is two. One is, on the stimulus bill, they knew it was going back to conference where they would get it, and they did. There's no mandatory competitive bidding in the stimulus bill. Number two, on this bill, it's not going back to conference. It's going to go straight, and they don't want competitive bidding. Now, why do they not want competitive bidding? It's because of earmarks. If you've earmarked something for a specific individual or firm, that earmark doesn't accomplish a political purpose. It has to be competitively bid. So you can see the corrupting influence of earmarks. No matter what their intrinsic value or how good they may be, we all lose. Right now, there's $300 billion a year documented waste and fraud in the federal government. And we don't have a Congress that wants to address that. And you think about that $300 billion out of this $410 billion bill going through, $40 billion of it's going to be pure waste. What would Oklahoma do with $40 billion? Think what we could do. And yet we have a political class in Washington that decides they want to enhance their own political careers by sacrificing the future of the country. So that's why I'm so adamantly opposed to earmarks. It is not because of the individual earmark. It causes good people to do some very bad things. And consequently, our kids and our grandkids are going to lose. So with that shining example of optimism, let me take any questions. Yes, sir.
Tom, where do we stand on AFP-OK? What's it looking like?
On what?
On the car check.
I don't think they're going to bring it up till the Minnesota race has been decided. Did you hear his question? What about car check? Where do we stand? Look, the car check portion of that isn't the worst part. The worst part is mandatory arbitration. I beat the Teamsters twice when I ran my business. 2 times I beat them. Once I beat them in election. They came back, got elected, got in, and then I beat them because I didn't negotiate a contract that they could live with, and they walked away. Mandatory arbitration steals your ability to run your business. Steals the ability for you to make the decisions that are in the best interest of your business. That ultimately will enhance the financial and well-being of the most employees in the country.